Welcome to the Flourish Podcast. My name is Ashley Kimbrough, and I'm going to be sharing practical tips, wellness tips for musicians, for teachers, and for speakers. So stick around. I'm going to be talking about why wellness is so important. Welcome to the Flourish Podcast. My name is Ashley, and we're going to be digging into why wellness is so important. And I know that, we're in our culture, wellness is, of course, becoming bigger and bigger as far as just the knowledge of it. But I feel like that there are so many different things online. Ever since, the internet is just like, I know the internet's been around for a while, but even with Instagram and YouTube, there are just so many different opinions. There's so many different videos, do this, do that, do this, do that. But I think that it's simpler than we can make it sometimes. And I also think that the more practical and simple the tips are, the easier and more likely we will actually implement it on the daily instead of like every now and then, or get started and then stop and get started and then stop. And one of the reasons why I like to talk about this specifically for musicians, for teachers, for public speakers is because I'm a musician and I grew up in a household of musicians, but my family was also really big into wellness. So I had both sides of the spectrum where I would grow up and, singing and performing with my mom and performing with her family, et cetera, et cetera. But my mom would always take the time to share with me, okay, this is why you're taking vitamin C. This is why you are doing this. This is what you should do in the future if you feel like you're getting tired. You want to do this before you become exhausted. Da 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 da. So that's how I grew up. And so that just stuck with me because, I just heard it all the time, things like that, and just wellness in general growing up. And so I love sharing it with others. And so today I'm going to be talking about the why I think it's so important for musicians. And I would say that the biggest thing is longevity. Biggest thing is longevity. I know so many different musicians. I grew up, like I said, in a musician household, musician family. And so as I, watch people get older, as I, the love to perform, the love for music never goes away. And even as I look at artists that I grew up admiring, a lot of them are still performing today, still going on tour, still recording, still doing all of those things, still producing, all of those things, still singing. I don't know if you've seen that video going around of the lady who is in like her 90s and she still has this beautiful operatic voice. I think longevity is so important. So important when I think about Tina Turner and how she was in her 70s and still going strong, and 50s and 60s and stuff, all of that stuff. I love that. I love that. And I think in addition, because I'm a vocalist, so in addition to wanting my voice to be healthy, I also want my body to be healthy. Because my voice is a part of my body. So I want my voice to have longevity. So I talk a lot about vocal wellness and just physical wellness as a whole as well. And because I think when we think about health, when we think about vocal health, when we think about just health in general, sometimes, that kind of stuff can be skipped when it comes to what we learn about music industry, and things like that. And so I want to talk specifically today about why it's so important and why doing the practical things are so important. And when I think about practical things, I'm thinking like sleep, exercise, eating well. Like the three of those are so huge, and yet a lot of those things, or the three of those things in particular, are ignored a lot in our culture. And I'm not just saying this in general, like I ignored the three of those things for a long time. I'll just talk about myself. I'll just talk about myself. I ignored the three of those things for a long time. My family was always big on supplementation, etc., and also big on eating right. Um, and they would tell me things as I was growing up, but sometimes when you look back, you're like, oh yeah, they were trying to tell me the whole time. But eating well was not like, I was always, of course with supplements, but I didn't eat well. And even after I graduated from college, I kind of took that college eating life with me after college, after I graduated. And I remember at one point my husband was like, we should probably look into changing what we're eating because I'm thinking that, ramen isn't the way. And so then we started doing more into, digging more into things that are healthier for us. And then the What the Health documentary came out. Do you remember that? And that was like a big game changer for us. And then, we had to, we went through the process of being organic, or not being organic, but eating organic foods. I was vegan for a while. I was vegan for about 2.5 years. And then exercise. I didn't really exercise. Like, I didn't really at all. And so then I had to start incorporating that. And then the biggest thing was sleep for me. I would work. Like, if it's one thing I knew how to do, it was work. But I would find myself not taking time to actually rest. And that became a problem. And I didn't even realize how much of a problem that it was. I didn't realize it. And it wasn't until I had certain people in my life, as I started paying more and more attention to my wellness or these aspects of my wellness, I'll say, and then the certain people in my, that are like my accountability buddies started pointing out different things in my life. And I was like, oh, and it took me a minute to actually like listen. But then I started realizing what they were talking about, like my overloaded schedule, how there was no time for rest in there, how, I would work until in the night, because I would, especially once I had kids, and I was teaching, and I taught at the local university here. So I was teaching, and then I had kids, and then I would work after they went to bed. And sometimes I would look up and it would be like 1-2 o'clock in the morning. And sometimes, like, it was actually a combination between work and Netflix, just to be real. And sometimes I would just keep working because I would get that second wind, and I would keep working until it would be like 5 something in the morning. And I would be like, okay, let me go ahead and get at least a couple hours of sleep, really like 1 or 2 hours of sleep before my son wakes up. And then I would go through the whole thing again. So, that's not healthy. But when you're in that work, I gotta grind, I gotta go, And not that work is bad, but working without resting can be bad, especially if you keep doing it over and over and over. And I'm going to talk about all of that stuff with sleep and stuff in a future episode. But I say all that to say that, one, having wellness accountability people in your life is huge. Because sometimes you can be so in what you're doing and so busy, but they kind of see like a bird's eye from the outside in of what you're doing. So they can point out, hey, I can see your schedule is like crazy loaded. When are you sleeping? Are you sleeping? Are you doing such and such before you go to bed? When are you resting? How is your eating? Things like that. Are you getting in that exercise? So having people in your life that can be that accountability is so important. And then also being able to take a step back and actually listen to what they're saying. But I found that because of those, it seems like small changes, but they have such huge impacts. So small change, huge impact, right? And I found that it's made me a better creative. It's made me a um, better, easier to work with. It's made me, like my creativity is more when I'm writing, when I'm producing, when I'm recording. I'm my stamina, my everything is better. I feel rested, my mental acuity, like just me being able to focus without the need of like a whole bunch of caffeine, or my ability to just keep going and going without being totally exhausted afterwards, or um, I feel like I get more done in less time. There's just so many different aspects of it. So many different aspects of it. But especially my energy, the energy part. But the mental part of it is huge as well. And even with performing. So I'm going to get into a lot more of that in different episodes of this podcast. I'm going to have on different guests and all of that good stuff. But as a musician, I would just say it's so important to not take your health for granted. It's so important to take the time to step back and be like, what am I doing with my health? How am I doing in these areas? Get someone else to chime in on that you trust, that is actually doing well in those areas, so that they can be like, and somebody that will be truthful with you, and say, hey, I see you're doing really well, but what about this, kind of thing. Are you taking time out for family? Are you taking time out to connect with friends? Because all of that is a part of our health and our wellness. And I was actually reading part of the Blue Zone books. If you haven't checked out Blue Zones, I think there's a documentary about it on Netflix. And he was a speaker at a summit that I went to many years ago, like over 10 years ago. And when it was like really, he had just launched his book and all of that stuff. And but you can get it from anywhere. I just got it from the library. And one of the common components of the Blue Zones is the presence of community. How much time they spent with family, how they prioritize friends, how they prioritized community. And as I was reading that this week, I was like, this is an area in which I can do better, So, but that's what I love, is that, learning is a never ending journey. And it's not saying that you have to be perfect at everything. You have to exercise perfect. You have to sleep perfect. No, it's not all perfect, but it's a journey. And as I'm learning about it, I'm learning how, practical ways, how it's not impossible. It's not out of reach. And the more that I apply these practical things to my life, the better it is. It's like, who knew that getting 8 to 9 hours of sleep could drastically improve your stress levels the next day? You know what I'm saying? It all goes together. So that's what I'm going to be sharing more and more about. If you have questions, I'd love to know if this has resonated with you. Just let me know, and go ahead and subscribe. And of course, if you've, something about this has resonated with you, please share with others. I'm going to try and keep these podcasts short, so it's something that you can listen to on your way to work, while you're working out, while you're doing stuff around your home, whatever it is, while you're in the kitchen or cooking or doing the dishes. I'm going to try and keep these short, but definitely want to continue to share. So stick around and be sure you subscribe.